Hey Gary, thank you so much for joining me here today on Conscious Coaching Conversations. I really appreciate you connecting with me. It's so great now that we can, connect with people in this way on Facebook and share experiences and stories. And I'm really just fascinated by, I guess, your 20 years of experience working with people around health and your dedication to people around the musculoskeletal system as well as lymphatic drainage and
Mouthful, isn't it?
and just being able to really give people the maximize people's health and guide them through that. You've done a bit of coaching too, and you've got a story around an experience that has happened, and you've kind of gone down this rabbit warren of you know
Mm.
um, finding yourself and self-discovery. So welcome, thank you so much for taking the time and to be with me tonight. And I'd love for you to speak a little bit about your background and working with the different people that you've worked with.
Yeah. Well, I guess in the stuff that I'm doing now, as far as the musculoskeletal stuff, I actually went back as a mature age student. So yeah, it was 2005. So
Yeah,
yeah, nearly
wow.
20
Okay.
years.
Yeah.
And I did a Bachelor of Health Science in musculoskeletal therapy, and it's just amazing where it's taken me. I think. When I was doing it, I was studying, and then I just fell into the right people. I worked with a guy, Howard Arbuthnot, and at the time he was running the Brisbane Lions. So I ended up working with them for 3 seasons. Left there, and Howard was well, still is a really well-known acupuncturist and therapist. And he used to have a lot of just elite athletes, a lot of Olympians. I think he'd been, back then he'd been to 5 different Olympics. Um,
Wow.
and
Okay. That's
really
amazing.
knowledgeable guy. Well, it is. I mean, for me, I think I finished my degree and realized, now I start my apprenticeship, because there's so much that you learn in a classroom, but it has nothing on what you learn when someone's on your table.
Mm.
Um, there's so much more to learn, and you realize that everybody is so different. So yeah, that kind of it took me along that path, and I was working with the athletes, and I was like, oh, it just wasn't. It wasn't flicking my switch. They're great, they're fun to work with and stuff, but it wasn't a challenge that I really wanted. All they wanted to do is just get me back to training, and it was kind of like patch me up and get me going. So I left there, and I started working for Mates, which is a charity for returned Defence Force. And yeah, it was a friend of mine, Ricky Dummigan, was running it. It was when they first started. Excuse me. They first started, and they were at the Brecky Creek there. And that was just great because there was so many, everything was so varied, and it was more of what I love. So there was a lot of, you know, obviously different mental health stuff there with PTSD. Then you'd have amputees, and everything was so complex. And I
What
really
does
loved
Okay, you've got PTSD, you've got people from defense, you've got amputees, and what strategies are you using with them in terms of healing?
just all sorts of different. So I mean, I can remember one guy. It's like, so the first thing I want to do with everyone is really get your nervous system down, because
Mm.
once your nervous system's down, I can get you into a parasympathetic. I can actually, your body then becomes receptive, and it just changes the whole energy of the body and the flow of what's going
Yeah,
on.
that's yeah. And how do you do that, Gary? Like, what's the quickest way to be able to affect our nervous system?
For me, I do vagal nerve stimulation. So I'll use like a TENS machine in your ears, and I plug the TENS machine into your ears. So the vagal nerve, actually, there's sensors in your ears. There's two little spots that you can put on, because then the vagus nerve comes down here, and it actually translates. Vagus means wandering, so it's
Mm.
a wandering nerve. It's probably the biggest nerve in the body. I don't know exactly the size of it, but it's, for me, it's the most important nerve. It goes to most of your organs, so it's a super important one. So yeah, stimulate someone's vagus nerve, and you just find that their body relaxes.
Mm.
And it gets, and then I'll use a whole lot of other different techniques that I've learned over the years to, kind of guide their body to where they need to go. I'm a firm believer that, I mean, I don't look, there's a lot of energy, and I'll transfer different energy as I'm working, but I actually believe what it is kind of guiding your body to healing itself. Like with
The
the
healer
power of,
themselves has to heal, like has to be healed in a sense, or carry a certain energy or have a certain nervous system to be able then impact the person
yeah,
you're working
definitely.
with.
And people don't realize, how much you can do it. I mean, here's an example. So I was at a father-son football match playing with my son. It was just end of October. And we're driving there, and I'm being a bit cheeky. And I said, mate, I hope you got your shin pads. I said, because your dad might give you a little kick today. He's 13 years old. He's getting big. Anyway, so here's me, put that energy out there into the world. I've got my foot on the top of the ball, and he's come across with an absolute amazing tackle, just taking his dad out.
Mm.
But I broke my foot. He's given me like a Lafranc fracture.
Wow, okay.
So
It was
I
getting
managed
a fracture.
yeah. So I managed to hobble off the pitch, get myself sorted, got off to the hospital, sitting there anyway. I end up going to the fracture clinic and sitting there with the three surgeons in front of me. They're like, okay, we're booking you in surgery 2 weeks, surgery, all three of them straight away. It was quite a wide one when you see all the x-rays and the scans and stuff. And I sat there, so for me, I asked my body, do I want to have surgery? And
Mm.
I was like, no. So then you need surgery. I was like, no, not having surgery. They're like, okay, we'll put you in a car.
So you chose not to have surgery? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah.
That's huge.
So
Hey, I did the same thing. I was supposed to have surgery twice, and I was
how the
no.
mind, it's
Yes.
the power of the mind and listening to your body. Because if I would have had the surgery, it's probably, by the time they put the plates and screws in, and then 4 months later, they'll take that out, then you're back on the boot. And then I'm literally starting my rehab, properly to get my foot better in 5 to 6 months.
Okay. And can I ask you something? Do you believe that there's an innate part of us that knows that our body has a healing ability that's beyond our, I guess, comprehension?
Hell yes.
Okay. That's so great. So that maybe your intuition was telling you.
Well, yeah, partly my intuition, but I mean, partly what I've learned over the years and what I know about myself and the human body and how to get it. I'll tell you another story in a moment about this. But so anyway, I've managed to go on what would have been a 9 month recovery.
Hmm.
I was within 11 weeks. I was back to my weighted pack walks up and down the mountain, skipping. No problems at all. So I'm sort of everything's fine now, and I'm literally it'd be 3.5 months in. So yeah, just over about 14 weeks.
That's
So
incredible.
it's that 14 weeks to 9 months is a huge difference, and what it would have done, because literally I would have been 4 or 5 months of, a mixture of crutches, boots, limping around, and the effect that it has on the rest of your body is absolutely amazing, because then it starts to change the different sort of biomechanics everywhere else in your body. And
Mm.
as much as your foot's okay, all of a sudden you start with neck pain or shoulder pain, and
And it then
all
impacts other parts of your body, and also having metal in the body.
yeah. So they put the metal in and then they take it out again because of where it is on the top of the foot.
Mm.
They take it out again after 4 to 5 months. Yeah, once it's healed, and then so it started to repair then. But this comes down to, for me, I'm quite spiritual in everything that I do. So I mean, to
Have you always
jump back,
been that way, Gary?
um, I think there's always been a little bit of it, but for me, in 2019, I was coming back from a yacht race, and we'd had a great run in the Brisbane to Gladstone. Cyclone had been up behind us. The waves were massive. It was a kite run all the way. It was just dream run.
Mm.
It was like, well, we can't take the boat back because just the sea state was so terrible. So started to drive back. Decided to stop at Noosa, and stopped at Noosa. Big waves. A bunch of guys together, and I'm like, come on, let's go for a body surf. jumped in the ocean. And, when I look at it, I mean, often when I coach, I tell my clients about the feather, the brick, the bus.
Yeah, I love
And
that analogy. I love that analogy. Can you say it again?
I've been tickled by the feather a few times. I'm like, yeah, you know, I've been hit by the brick. I was working like 10, 12 hours every day, just back to back clients. And it was really just mentally and physically draining me. And then, just ignore that and then jump on a boat and, no sleep for 3, 4 days or whatever. And you just, yeah, to come back. But yeah, it's a stop to the surf. And yeah, the universe spoke to me. So the wave picked me up. It literally, when normally when you surf, you kind of turn your body so you can roll if you get dumped.
Hmm.
It didn't get time. It was like it picked me up by the waist. I felt like a second rower being lifted in a line out with the rugby. And it just picked me up and then dumped me on my head. And I heard the crack and just
Hmm.
get me under. But I got up and I was like, oh, oh. I managed to get out of the water. And anyway, just turns out I dissected my internal carotid artery. So
So where
pretty
is the
lucky.
carotid artery? Is that in the brain?
Carotid artery, yeah, the internal one goes right the way up into the brain. But the carotid is like the major one that takes the blood flow to the brain. So, and when you dissect it, your arteries are like, there are many layers of a thick tube because they have such pressure in them. And what it's actually done is where it forces it and stretches it, it rips the inside of the tube. So what that does is it changes the flow. It's like putting, bricks in a river, and it changes the flow of the water, or the pressure of the blood's going up. And that's what I'll often call the embolisms. So different bits will come out of the blood, and then because it's so close to the brain, the embolism breaks off, and it's good night.
Your
I was
way of just like explaining it is so intricate and detailed. Gary, I almost feel like my neural pathways are connecting as you're talking.
yeah, just pretty lucky, really. It's yeah. So, but that happened to me, and so anyway, there was all sorts of different side effects from that. I had like a Horner syndrome. I lost sight in my left eye.
Hmm.
I still have a tremor now from the neurological stuff. Like there's just where the scar is on the brain tissue,
Yeah, so
and
that's the aftermath.
it changed everything. But in the hospital again, it's listen, our medical system when you've had an accident like that is absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
I was in the MRI, and they save you. We're pretty lucky. But again, I went there and they're like, oh, stuck me on all sorts of medication, and they're like, okay, you'd be fine to go back to work now. So I go back to work, and I was working for a few hours, and then my eyesight went again. And they told me if anything happened, get straight back into the hospital. Get back into the hospital, sit straight back in the MRI, and they're like, no, it's torn more. Stop working, stop doing whatever you're doing. So I was
Hmm.
like, what am I going to do? So I went off and was like, oh, okay, I need to sit down for a bit. So
That's
I gave
massive,
it,
massive. Like
yeah,
one extreme of life. There you are, you're sailing, you're surfing,
yeah,
you're
a
literally,
very active guy. And
yeah.
then, yeah, so okay, what am I going to do? So I had a big house in Windsor, and so I used to have my clinics and everything downstairs, and then a big Queenslander, and I literally gave everything away, and I went off and did Vipassana for 3 months.
How was that? Like, what was your biggest takeaway from that?
Oh, you learn so much about yourself. Anyone that can sit, even if you do like a 10-day, the normal standards are 10-day. It's
What did you ultimately get? Like, if you had to sum up your experience in a couple of sentences, what did you ultimately discover about yourself during that time?
you get to learn to sit with yourself. And if you can't sit with yourself, then that means that somehow along the line you're not loving and enjoying
Okay,
yourself.
okay, I love that. Now, why do you think that people can't actually sit with themselves? Like, what is it about that that's so difficult? What is it about meditation that is quite challenging for some people? What is it about that, Gary?
I mean, I think it's a fear. It's a fear of being able
Where
to
our
sit.
fear, where's that fear coming from? Like, can you actually
Look,
create
it,
that fear?
it's programming, it's society, it's generational, it's all the things. It's
So when we sit with ourselves, we actually have to then confront that, right?
Yeah. So you sit there and you literally, that's what we used to do. So the thing I did is called a sit serve program. So I'd do 10 days of silence as a student, and then I'll do 10 days of, working there. So it might be like the male manager where I'm helping, but basically even on the 10 days, you could talk a little bit, but it was mostly silence.
Mm.
And I would go there, even when I was working, I would be meditating for probably 10, 12 hours a day.
Okay, so when you sit there and you meditate for 10 or 12 hours a day, do you still have that little voice running in your head, or is it just complete silence for you?
No, what you do, so with the Vipassana, you'll take, you agree to within yourself is for 3 times a day, you'll sit there with legs crossed, hands and eyes shut, and you don't move for an hour. And it sounds very easy, but within that, once you start to understand and you understand what the Gautama Buddha was talking about when he wanted, you actually start to release all the traumatic pain that's within your body.
Nice. Nice.
And
Yeah. I love that you
it's not,
mentioned the Buddha, by the way. Thank you for that. That is
I
so
can
potent.
I promise you, it's not nice at all. I mean, I had times there where I felt like there was hot knives being driven into my back and shoulders. But you have to realize that pain arises and it falls. It arises, it falls. The Buddha talks about taking that middle path, and everything's that pendulum of going to extremes.
Yeah, I love meditation. I can sit, like, if I could sit on a rock all day, every day, and just meditate, I would do it. I love it so much.
Yeah, well, you've got. I mean, I do. I meditate daily, and the thing is with the Vipassana as well is that you learn that everything is about. We talk about when you might be preparing food for 200 people, but you do it with metta, with love.
Oh, I
So
love
as
that.
you're stirring so the porridge is with love. So you're putting your energy, your love into that
Gary, that's
porridge.
so beautiful. It's so purposeful. Like, it's almost like every act is an act of love. And the Japanese people, they actually they actually practice that pretty much in everything that they do. In making sushi, they make everything. In having tea, they actually, that's an act of love. So when they sit there and they make it this incredibly beautiful experience, and
Can
you
you
can
imagine
do
if
that.
we all did that?
I know. Hey, is that the purpose of our existence?
It is. This is what it is. This morning I go for a walk, and it's like I'm in Brisbane and it's absolutely piddling down with rain here. I love it. The inner child comes out, and I walk along the river, and then I get to New Farm Park and I take my shoes off and I'm sloshing across the mud as I walk, and I'm
Yeah.
grounding. But it's appreciating the muddy, the feeling underneath your feet. That's what love is you start to appreciate the beautiful things in nature. You get to that point where you realize that we are all one and everything is one. And that's when life flows. If you can come at life with a beautiful open heart, it just makes everything better.
Yeah, and it's finding the beauty and the joy and the love in all moments and the simplest of moments.
But I'm saying, I mean, I find the joy and the beauty of the fact that the universe picked me up, dropped me on my head, and tried to kill me.
Did you really?
Yeah, because that gave me the opportunity to go and do the Vipassana for 3 months. But here's the kicker. So I'd already booked to go and do another advanced course of Joe Dispenza.
Yeah. I love that you see. I love. Oh my goodness, you're like bringing the passion. You're bringing the Buddha. You're bringing Joe Dispenza into this conversation. This is
I
incredible.
did. I've done a fair bit of Joe Dispenza's work. I love his stuff. And it was already booked. So I left 3 months of silence to being I was staying on the Lower East Side of New York. I
No.
went from vegetarian in silence to, eating in Cat's Diner and drinking margaritas at the top of some roof bar. It was like, you've
Amazing.
got to have balance in your
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
It's about moderation when we do things and enjoying it. And, it's not about getting up there and getting smashed, but it's enjoying the things and everything about it.
And it's
But
about
yeah,
choice, Gary. I mean, you're choosing to whatever it is that you want to create for your life. And so some people choose mastery. And so that means they dedicate their life to mastery and it looks like this for them. And other people choose balance and fun and adventure and it looks different for each person. But isn't that the beauty that we get to choose how we create our lives and that choice is
yeah,
then ours solely?
yeah. But you see, the funny thing is when I got to New York as well, it's like I was fortunate enough. I'd been sitting, especially I was in the Vipassana, and I was manifesting, getting a healing at Joe Dispenza. I already knew about it, and I
Oh,
mean,
our free meeting's going to end soon, Gary.
there was
Got
1,500 people there, and I think
questions.
they maybe do 100 healings. So my chances,
Wait. They made you do 100 healings. Hold on, I can't
no,
see.
no, there was 1,500 people. It was at Niagara Falls, which is great. He picks places with a natural energy. So because of the waterfall, there's like the negative ions that come out of the water are just like recharging.
Yeah,
So
I'm
you'll
thinking,
see,
Gary. Yeah.
I've manifested this healing, and yeah, I managed to get one. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to get healing, and so now and that was quite an out of body experience.
Wait. You got a healing from Joe Dispenza.
Not from him personally, but so what you do is we call it a cage where you have 8 people around you, and 8 people will send that love and healing energy into your body, and it comes through. And I can tell you can look on, and I've seen it. I mean, I've done a lot of work. I've got a few friends there, so I volunteered this year in Australia in March with Joe
And that was
Dispenza,
last year or this year?
just in 2023, just gone
Okay. Yeah.
in
I
March.
wanted to go to that one as well. I saw
So
that one
good. And
come up.
again, you talk about like manifestation, and I was like, I really I get a lot out of serving, out of helping people, and it's part of my purpose. It's
I
my
noticed
passion, and
that, Gary. You're very noble.
yeah, well, it's a very selfish thing as well. You have to realize what it is, and like for me, that recharges me. And so I'd done the same. I was manifesting. I was like, do you know what? I want to hug every one of these 15,000, 1,500 people. And I was like, so I manifested myself a job on the door and I came in. So to get into the building, you had to come in and give me a hug. And I was like,
Wow. That's so
I
beautiful.
loved every minute of
That's
it.
so beautiful. That would have been such a
Yeah.
great energy, like to be in that space
Oh,
with all those people, like-minded, and everyone's there for healing, for love, that
it's
space of,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
And I've seen and I've spoken to people myself, like stage 4 cancers. Oncologists have said to him, just get all your affairs in order. You've got maybe 4 weeks. They'll come and do the week long. They'll go back and they're like, we don't know what's happened. Your tumor's disappeared. It's the power of the healing, the love, and that's where I guess a lot of that goes into the work I do now, is realizing that when you're treating someone, you're putting a lot of love and energy into that person. And yeah, it's a very important part of what I do. But it's amazing. You can do it remotely. There's an energy between you and I now, and it's like
Well, we
just
wouldn't
simple.
be here right now in this moment if we were not meant to, Gary. Like,
Exactly.
I think that everything, like, there's divine timing for everyone's meeting and encounters beyond our comprehension at times.
Yeah, exactly. And you don't need to comprehend it. You just trust. So that's me. It's just trust in the universe. And I'm like, okay,
And what's meant for you will be, right?
always. I'm
And so
just fortunate. I'm very blessed.
we all are blessed, Gary. That's the
That's it.
truth. Like,
Yeah, there's a lot of people got to live their karma.
Gary, that's incredible. Like the power that people have within their bodies and within their minds and spirits, and the power that we have to heal each other. It's such a beautiful, I guess, it's a beautiful experience that you had there with Joe Dispenza in New York, in Niagara Falls.
So, I mean, as I say, I've been really quite blessed within my life, and yeah, so many experiences like that. But it's kind of changed the practitioner that I am
Mm.
and the way that I help people, because I believe that everyone has that power within themselves, but you've just got to guide the people to see it. And
Mm.
that's why what I do is very much mind, body, soul. It's about, talking about mates for mates. And, I had so many people that used to say to me, "Oh, I can't meditate." And I remember a quick story about one guy. And he was actually a sniper. And
Mm.
I can't meditate. I said to him, "Well, what do you do when you take a shot?" He said, "Well, I breathe in.
Mm.
On the out breath, I squeeze the trigger." I said, "Just imagine you're shooting people." And he comes into me next week. Comes into me next week. He said, "I can meditate." It's so good.
Wow. And it's so
You just got to give the right person the right, just
guidance.
right direction, and then they'll find it. And then we sort of talking then, and it's like, okay, well, let's take the shooting bit out of that now, and we know that we can do this, and we can get into our body, and we can feel. And it's like, oh yeah, you can move on. It's
But getting to
yeah.
your body and feel. Okay, so
Mm,
that the whole, I guess, the whole experience of healing is actually getting into our body and feeling what are we
yeah.
actually feeling when we're in our body? Is it the unfelt or the trapped emotions that we previously were not safe enough to feel?
Well, who knows? Probably a bit of column A and a bit of column B. But it's so different with every person, and the different, as I say, I mean, it's my belief that this stuff it's written into your DNA about the trauma you have. Like I know that I've just recently went and gone off and done some work with like plant medicine and
Oh,
stuff like that.
wow. Okay. And you're going to bring that into the conversation. I love it, Gary.
Yeah, well, like for me, it was like this
So what
stuff
was
that
your
I just
experience of that? What was your experience of plant-based medicines and what was your takeaway from that? What did you discover in that experience? I'm really curious. There's a lot of people that haven't gone down that path, including myself. And so I'd love to find out what you got out of it.
first thing I'd say, it's really important that you find the right people to do it with. It's a very, very powerful thing. But for someone like myself that feels quite connected to the universe anyway and spirit, is you then see when grandmother comes up
Mm.
and she talks to you. I mean, there's points there you understand that you're going to see things and feel things, and everybody's different, and it's different every time that you do it. So the universe innately knows what you need at that time and what you can handle.
So it's all
So it just,
perfect. It's all perfect.
everything's always perfect,
And you
and
just
it
have
just
to embrace it and there's no resistance there.
there's no resistance. And I mean, I guess if people have got resistance, that's where the fear can come in. And that's why I say to you, it's really important to make sure that you've got the right people taking you on the right journey.
And do you have a beautiful environment? Like you are out somewhere in nature surrounded by beauty, Gary.
I was, but yeah, I mean, you do it inside. I mean, historically, especially when you do the ayahuasca, it's a medicine you take at night, so you wait until the sun's come down. I mean, I did it, and it was a full moon. I mean, for me, there was the planetary stuff as far as coming into that age of Aquarius.
Oh.
There was there was the energy in the medicine, and I booked this before I knew. It was just everything took me to the right path. And it was about getting rid of that generational pain. I mean, my family grew up, like, mum's side and dad's side, some are in Ireland, some are in England. So you're talking about my grandparents went through the Blitz, getting bombed every day, like literally losing friends as children, and the fear and stuff like that would have been in that. But then they passed on to mum, and that gets passed on again. But it goes further. My
Where does it
grandfather's
get
side.
passed on, Gary? Does it get passed on? Do you feel like maybe in our DNA, in our
Definitely. And it's entwined within your DNA and that fear. I know, when you read things like the I Ching and you get into gene keys and stuff like that, you
wow, okay.
realize
Yeah,
how
you've
that.
gone deep, Gary.
Well, you've like, look, not
I think
everybody needs to go as
you've
deep
got
as me.
to
That's just my nature.
Well,
You
not
know,
only that, but to be a good healer, you actually have to go to those depths. If you look at even Deepak Chopra, he's a doctor and his son, and the way they work with people is not just, through their training that they've attained in university. They actually look at the body spiritually, and they look at the etheric field and they look at, where
yeah,
they're cutting people as specifically to do with a mind body spirit connection. And I often see that the best healers that are out there have integrated that as part of their healing with people.
Yeah. And it's a must. It's a must, because otherwise you're doing a disservice if you don't. You know, it's the same as when I treat people. I love that saying that, there's nothing that gets into dis-ease on its own. So if I'm working with you, I want to stimulate your vagus nerve. I want to make sure I'm moving that lymphatic fluid. You know, I'll do kinesiology to find out what's going on where, and then I want to work on that fascia, and I'm using your breath, and your nervous system's getting calmed down, and it's all of these systems working together, because that's what the body's about. That energy's got to flow. So to get all those systems working together, it then opens you up for that flow, and you find all of a sudden then everything becomes way more spiritual. And you're on your walk in the morning and you can just feel the hairs on your arms. You start to notice how there's different things, like animals and children. It's like they have such a different filter, and you'll just get things.
They don't have a filter. They have the cleanliness. So they have, their experience of reality is not distorted through all the filters that have been piled up upon them. And,
that's my thing with the clients, is to try and remove their filters
and clear them out.
Yeah.
So that they're able to then, energetically be more vibrant, be more alive, and, tap into that internal power and then create the reality. And they don't have those heavy blockages, like mentally, physically, spiritually, Gary.
Exactly.
And so this is what ayahuasca does. Like, I'm even saying it right. So it cleans you out, right? It cleans you out spiritually, mentally, physically. And then did you actually see a shift or a transformation in your reality? Did something shift for you?
Yeah, so for me, I went on and I did a weekend where it was 2 consecutive nights. So after the first experience, there was probably more questions than answers, that I'd come. But again, the medicine just knows, and it takes you to where you need to be at the right time. And then on the second night, it was just, I had this calming flow, and it was just like, yeah, okay. That you can hear, if you go to the wrong place at the wrong time, it's the strongest psychedelic that that you can take as far as a medicine, and it can take people to the wrong place. And if you've got certain things happening and you're not guided in the right way, and there's other mental health issues, you can end up in a very, very bad place. So it's the one thing I will say about it is to make sure that you're speaking to the right people, and you're going to the right places. Someone that can guide you, care for you,
Nurture you and hold the
you.
right safe space. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful, Gary. I just want to say thank you so much for being so generous with your sharing, and for being so open about your life and your experiences and your journey. And I just really want to acknowledge you. There's a real commitment and dedication there to be there and heal people and offer, I guess, your loving guidance and your support and your energy to contribute to people. Like, you do it so effortlessly and naturally. So I just want to acknowledge you for your commitment and your dedication to serving people in the way that you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I truly believe it's part of my purpose of why I'm here. And as I say, there's a very selfish thing about it as well, because I get a lot out of it.
Well, the purpose of living is giving. That's the purpose of life. We can't actually receive without giving, Gary. So thank you so much for joining me on Conscious Conversations, Gary. Really appreciate your time. And it's so great that you're out there serving people in the way that you do.